Can you define coherence?
The lack of conflict within a narrative. Uh, the it's like different points or different clocks. They're all like synchronized to the same beat. Like you can get from anywhere to anywhere else without friction. Like all communications are instant. You can make connections without having to rationalize them. As compared to a great organism made of many parts, and all these parts, although they're different, they are aligned to the same purpose and they all complement each other. So it's one system, completely decentralized, and every node or point is different, and yet they work in unison for the same goal. And every point has instant access to all the others, like perfect connectivity, perfect telepathy, perfect communication, perfect synchronization. And there's no conflict in the narrative. We can compare the narrative of the human body or emotional body. Like if our brain works fine but our heart not so good, then we'll have a lack of coherence. If our brain and heart work well but the liver and kidneys work on a different frequency, at some point we're going to have problems. So instead of seeing it as like, oh, you have kidney problems, it's more like you have coherence problem. Your kidney and your heart don't communicate too well. We have to adjust them. There's like a they're working in different time zone. Your kidneys are in LA and the spleen is in on the East Coast,
Right.
Virginia, Virginia Beach.
Okay.
Um, so by allegory, I can describe the way I see coherence.
So, what's the gateway to coherence, put simply, for people that are not really able to find it?
Uh, Coherence, once the blockages are removed, becomes self-evident. I cannot give you a recipe for how to achieve coherence. I'm not big on recipes,
Right.
but if one understands the philosophy behind it, uh, we can apply coherence in best example I can come up with is in personal interactions. Uh, if you study or look at random interactions between people, eventually there will be some conflict. Eventually someone will have a need to be right, and someone will have a need for the other person to be wrong in order for them to be right. Now, where I am right now, I'm always right. In my view, nobody is ever wrong because the scale only measures one thing. The thermometer doesn't measure hot and cold, it measures temperature. Okay? There's no line that says here is where cold stops and warm begins. This is where wrong stops and right begins. The thermometer of righteousness only measures how right I am. I can be a little right, I can be more right, I can be like, wow, I'm so right, but I'm always right. We're never wrong. There are no negatives. Like, ironically, when you practice via negativa, you start negating literally everything. And ironically, the last thing you negate is negation itself. So even if operating the via negativa all the way, the last thing we negate is negation, we arrive at a positive. There is no nothing. There is no wrong, but it can always be a bit more right. So going back to coherence in interpersonal conversations or interactions, uh, one will not only need to feel right, but for them to be right, they will need the other person to be wrong. And this is how we lose coherence, and this is how we lose one of the most amazing things that can happen, which is common ground. Like if I was religious, I would call it holy ground, but I call it common ground because common ground is where we're both right. It's like when the two spheres merge and we have like this portion here that we have in common. And common ground is where the magic happens. And if we seek that common ground, if we don't seek to focus on the differences, and if we find that common ground, I don't believe in seeking, I believe in finding. Big difference. Seekers will always seek and never find. Finders will just find. They're like two different species almost. Uh, if we focus on that common ground and if we find it, then this common ground will expand gradually and hopefully also exponentially. And it's a key to the most wonderful relationship. But if we focus on what's different, if we focus on what's wrong, if we focus on needing to be right at the expense of someone else being wrong, goodbye common ground. Chaos, entropy, complete loss of coherence. But once we found common ground, we start to synchronize, and the liver and the spleen are on GMT, UTC time, all synchronized.